is there someone for me? Is there going to be a man for me? Is there a right person? Am I going to? And it was just like, it had to tell me, like, forget it all. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Anything that you thought was going to happen is not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's completely different. Let it go. Forget it. And I honestly was free after that. Like when I came back from that ceremony, I was like, thank God, I don't have to ever worry about this again.
Welcome to the Multiple Truths podcast. We're your hosts, Holly
and Brittany. This is a space where we can come together healing in community, where we share our self-love journeys, insights, and wisdom.
A space with no hierarchy or judgment, fostering love, compassion, and respect, and where we honor our differences. With open minds and hearts, everyone's truth is welcome here. We are in this together. Let's dive into the episode.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Multiple Truths podcast. You are listening to Brittany today. How are you? I hope you are all doing well today, whatever it is you're getting up to. Get cozy, get comfy, grab your coffee, grab your tea, or wherever it is you're tuning in from. I'm excited to introduce you to today's guest. I'm here with Jenn, a good friend of mine, actually. Some of you might know her already as JK Ultra. I'm going to do her little intro in a moment here. But I love having conversation with Jenn. You guys, she's so interesting. She talks about some really interesting mind-altering, mind-bending topics. Like I said, some of you might already be familiar with her, but I'm excited about this episode. I actually have 2 episodes with her. So this one is coming out, and then my next solo episode will be with her as well. So it'll be like this episode, and then I think like an episode with Holly and I, and then Holly's solo episode with, whatever guest she has on. And then it'll be Jenn and I again, because there was just so much that we had to talk about. I was like, we can't finish it all in this episode. So she's hopping back on for a part 2. So stay tuned for that. But in this episode, we talk about love, actually, which is a beautiful theme. She recently got married, which we're going to talk about. I feel like her love story is so relatable, especially if you've been single for a while, or, regardless of your love story, whether you're single or not, you don't have to be single to listen to this episode. We talk about other things as well. We get into the patriarchy. She recently wrote a book. Anyways, I'm not going to give too much away because we talk about it in the episode, but a little life update for me. It's July. No, that's a lie. At the time of our episode, we were recording in July, but at the time of this, it's August 3rd, you guys. Summer is flying by like that. I feel like I have been moving through so much over the last couple of weeks. Like, you guys, when I tell you the universe has been clearing space I have been clearing space, mind, body, and spirit, like not only physically, but like my body has been purging. So I know this episode is going out for a few weeks from now, but I'm curious if any of you have been through any of that. I feel like August is going to be an amazing month, okay? It's going to be an amazing month. I'm putting it out there right now. Let me know how your August has been or is going at the time of this video. I'm curious. Hopefully, if you went through any sort of purge, hopefully that you're making space for beautiful things to come in to your life as well, because that's been the theme for me. So I'm hoping that the beautiful things are about to enter. Anyways, not that there aren't beautiful things around me right now, because there are, but I went through an intense purge. If you follow me on Instagram, you guys know that. Follow me on Instagram if you don't already, shameless plug. But I talk about it more on there. I also talk about it a little bit on my YouTube channel. So check me out on the other socials. I'm sure you guys are aware, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube. Anyways, without further ado, let me introduce you to Jenn. So Jennifer Carmody, better known as JK Ultra, is a leading new voice in the digital age of spirituality, metaphysics, and extraterrestrial phenomena. With a following of over 500,000, she has built a loyal audience by breaking down complex, mysterious topics into simple, relatable insights. Through her practice in hypnosis and engaging content, Jenn empowers others to explore the unseen dimensions of life and uncover their soul's journey. So without further ado, let's dive into the episode. But hello, Jenn. Thank you so much for being here with us today. How are you?
Hi, Brittany. I'm so excited. I'm always excited when we get to connect and talk. And it's funny when we get to do it with an audience.
Yeah, I'm excited to dive into conversation. So for those listening, Jen and I have been friends for a while now, and you just got married. She just got married, and I was like, "Wait, don't say much about it yet. We need to wait for the podcast because just the story to how you met your partner and everything is worth talking about. I feel like it's a story worth sharing. So, if you're open to yeah, giving us
Yes.
but before we dive into that, how was the wedding?
It was amazing. So on the bottom here, not to interrupt, but I don't see myself having sound waves.
Yeah, it comes up on my end.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure because didn't know if I wasn't.
No,
Okay,
I think yeah, you're all good.
perfect. So the wedding was awesome. We did a small wedding just at the Santa Barbara courthouse, which
Mhm,
is like literally the most beautiful courthouse. Honestly,
mhm.
people that are looking to do like a small wedding, it's so gorgeous, civil wedding, and then I had about 10 friends come for the civil ceremony. It was so fun, and actually, because from when I met my husband, it kind of was just we were together and we were getting married, basically.
Mhm.
There was no official proposal,
Mm.
so he actually proposed an hour before the wedding, which was
Wait,
very cute.
that's so cute. Oh, I love that. Oh, I
And I was
just
obviously not expecting it
yeah,
because we were on our way to the
get
courthouse to get married. And so, it was very sweet, very unexpected, and I loved the ring, I loved the process, and then we all went to lunch together afterwards with, 10 of my friends, and it was really cool because it was, like, so many different stages of my life. It was, like, friends from this job that I had or this job or this place that I lived or this and it
Mhm,
was interesting. It was, like, kind of seeing which is what I'm going through now that I'm actually gonna be leaving LA and moving to Louisiana.
mhm,
I'm seeing that in all of my stuff. Like, this
mhm,
is at least neat, but beyond these
mhm.
bounds, everything is, like, unpacking and purging,
Wow.
and so it's really interesting, like, this kind of closing of chapters in so
Mhm,
many ways,
mhm,
and I see that in, like, a lot of other people's lives, especially people who are, like, really doing the spiritual work.
mhm,
I'm
mhm,
seeing them, like, the chapters are changing and closing, and
mhm,
I'm just, like, being confirmed everywhere in the outer world what everybody
mhm,
else is doing too.
mhm. Yeah, no, I love that. It is interesting how it mirrors, like, how the outside world, like, mirrors, like, what's going on, and I was gonna say, like, you're going through massive shift and change. Massive shift. I mean, you've been in LA for a while now, and even with meeting your partner, like, that happened relatively quick. It was like, "Boom, here's the love of my life. Let's fricking do this thing." Which I love because you were single for a really long time before that. So I kind of wanna
Mhm.
talk about that a little bit too, because I feel like, someone like me, for example, I know I'm still young, but I know other people listening too. It's kind of like, I'll be 32 this year. I'm still single. I haven't met my partner. Why not? Da 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 da. And a lot of people feel like they're behind the whole 9 yards. And, seeing what happened with you, how you just focused on yourself, because that's really what you did. You really focused on you. You focused on what you got going on in your life, and boom, the universe was like, boom, 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 here you go. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful story. So, yeah, I just like want to hear more about your story. And I just think it's really important to note, like, just for those listening, like, you're never behind. We're all exactly where we're supposed to be. Everyone's story is different. But I know you've been doing the work for a while. You've been diving within, you've been doing the shadow work. I know you've been really single for a while. There was a point where you're like, I don't even think I'm gonna end up with a man, which we'll get into after, which is interesting as well. But here you are, married, moving out of LA to go live with your now husband. Woo! It just, like, makes me really excited, and it's beautiful to witness. So and I love that you had, like, a small wedding, because, there's something to that too. I've been talking to my sister who actually just got engaged a couple months ago, and she wants to be engaged for a few years. She's a little younger than me, so she's in no rush for the actual marriage part. But she, we were talking about it, and she's like, "I just want a small wedding." She's like, "Brittany, I counted, like, X amount of people." And I was like, I get that. I feel like weddings nowadays have become so performative. I feel like it's become a performance.
as opposed to a celebration of love. And that's what it's supposed to be. You know, it's supposed to be a celebration. Like, yes, a celebrate party, like bring your loved ones, celebrate your love, but it doesn't need to be something completely extravagant, out of this world. I mean, wedding costs are a complete scam. Like, that's a whole other topic of conversation. So I just kind of wanted to mention that as well. I like how it was intimate and just, you know, specific people that really meant a lot to you, that can really celebrate you genuinely. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to say that as well.
Oh, thanks. So, on that topic,
Mhm.
I do have to shamelessly plug my book because this is one of the main topics in the book. So, it's
Mm,
called Can Not Included,
mm,
and it's about all of the programming that
mm,
created the modern woman. And I
mm,
have a whole chapter called Unhappily Ever
mm,
After.
mm,
And it breaks down a lot of fairy tale programming
mm,
and how basically, even though as like adult women, it's not like we're watching fairy tales or watching Disney movies the way that we did as children, but now it's coming up in other ways. It's
mm.
like basically instead of the fairy tale, it's, celebrities, influencers in Calabasas instead of a castle. It's
Right.
Instagram stories instead of bedtime stories. And it's
Ah.
all this consumerism around self worth
Mm,
that gets tied into
mm,
the wedding, the ring, the proposal, the cost per plate. And it
mm,
gets so far away from what really matters. And I
mhm,
get into a lot of how these programmings came about, which
mhm.
almost all of them are based by consumer scams, really. And
Right.
we go through like many different things. Weddings is one in the fairy tale chapter. And also like this Mr. Right
Mhm,
programming is that like there's this checklist that so many women are thinking that they need in a partner because this is what they're seeing online. This is what we've heard in the stories and the fairy tales. And it's like,
mhm,
it's literally like a checklist, mostly around like, what does he have? What can he offer? What does he
mhm,
do?
mhm.
And it's so far from like, how would this make me feel?
Right.
And is this person gonna be a problem solver? Is this
Mhm,
someone who's gonna
mhm,
be there if I get sick? Is this somebody who's going to
mm,
be trustworthy? And it's
mhm,
so many of the checklist of what women have been programmed to think a good partner is
mhm.
so far from what would actually fulfill them.
Right.
And this Mr. Right programming, it's like everybody's an individual.
Yeah.
There's not one type of partner
Right.
that is perfect for
Mhm.
everybody.
Yeah.
And so it makes men, think that they are unworthy of
Mhm,
relationships a lot of
mhm,
times because they're like, well, I don't have enough money to have a girlfriend. I don't have
mm,
a good enough job to have a
mhm.
girlfriend. And then they don't want to put themselves out there.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with women. It's like kind of, they're because they don't need a man in
Mhm.
order to survive anymore.
Yeah.
They're like, well, I don't need a man. So I only want someone who benefits me.
Yeah.
And we really have forgotten there's other needs besides
Yeah.
survival. There's
Yeah.
emotional needs, there's
Yeah.
psychological
Yes.
needs.
Yes, no, I hear you. And, you know, where the worthiness wound is runs so deep. Like, I know for me, that's personally why I attracted in um very like narcissistic, manipulative relationships, is because subconsciously I didn't see my worth. I didn't know my worth. Therefore, I attracted in partners that cheated on me. You know, they didn't see their worth as well. So, like, that worthiness wound for men and women, you know, runs so deep. You know, self sabotage. That's why people self sabotage in relationships. And, you know, that's something that I'm really starting to become a lot more clear on. Unfortunately, I had to go through the ringer with relationships to really get clear on what I want. You know, what am I looking for me personally? You know, what fits me? Like you said, everyone's different. There's not a one type fits all. You can't fit it into a box. But I need to get my hands on that book of yours. That sounds
I'm gonna send you a copy. I've been
okay.
meaning to, so I'll get your address after
Woo!
and send it to you.
Okay, I'm gonna read it.
So on the topic though
Mm,
of my own little love story fairy tale, which is so funny because so much of this book is about kind of like, oh, you like stop the Prince Charming, like all of this. It's not against it. It's really more
yeah.
so saying like know what the origin of these things are, know why you're desiring these things, know what's lacking in you
Mhm,
before you can truly see what you want to do in this life,
yeah.
in love, in relationship, in every way.
Yeah.
And but then it is funny as like right as this book finally comes to an end in my chapters of life, then now I do have my little Prince Charming man and Ken,
Mm,
which is Ken not included in all of it. So it's funny how kind of the full release of that
Yeah.
also. So to give a little backstory, I also had been through the ringer with relationships, like most people have.
Mhm.
Very few people get out, without some
Scathed.
issues in that department,
Mhm.
right? And so, but that can be like so, and especially too, ever since I was younger, I've always had cheating relationships,
Yeah.
always with being cheated on. And by this point, by my last one was so extreme, so like extreme that I was like, okay, I went to be celibate for 3 years.
Mhm.
I didn't make a decision that I was gonna do that. I was just kind of repulsed, hurt, confused,
Mhm.
thought I chose someone different finally.
Mhm.
But then the same thing happened even worse, and every time I thought I was choosing differently,
Mhm.
but it kept having the same end result. I'd pick a completely different type of person
Mhm.
and then still end up in the same situation, and I'm like, "Okay, so is this just like I'm stuck in this situation?" And I really became uncomfortable with the idea of even wanting a partner, wanting love. I was like actually like even embarrassed or uncomfortable to even think if I wanted that in my life. And I actually
Mhm.
made a lot of peace with like, you know what? If I die alone,
Mhm.
I'll have a good life. I know how to enjoy myself.
Mhm.
The relationships bring me problems. I'm like, you know what? I am good, actually. I
Mhm.
think I need to be with me.
Mhm.
And so that was definitely a lot of stages in that. Ayahuasca played a part in that several times in different things, different healing parts work played a part where I really had to like call forward. So a couple months before I met my husband, I did this parts work on myself that really like I called forward like all the parts of myself around relationships
Mhm.
that needed to be heard, that needed to be seen. And it was like a part of me at 14-year-old coming in, and a part at 21, at 25, 28, 30, 32, all of these different parts coming forward. And really just they were so like disappointed, disappointed in men, disappointed in relationships, disappointed in what I've had to deal with. And so just like also like apathetic. And then when I asked each of these parts, like, well, what do you need to
Mhm.
like integrate, to feel better, to stop holding on to this? What do you need from me? And all of the parts said the same thing, which was something that I was very uncomfortable admitting to
Mhm.
myself because it was safer for me to say, I don't want love. I don't want a relationship. I don't care. That is safer than the reality of feeling like, what if there isn't somebody out there for me?
Right.
What if this is not available to me?
Mhm.
And which is crazy because in every other aspect of my life, I think I deserve the best and the world. And my
Mhm.
Leo self wants, and I think I'm unstoppable in like
Mhm.
every other area of life and that nothing can get in my way. But then when it comes to the love, the worthiness,
Mhm.
specifically romantic love, because I have a lot of love in my life with friendships and community. And, but in romantic love, I was like, oh, like this is just never going to work for me.
Mhm.
And when I asked all of these different parts of myself and parts work, they all kind of said the same thing of like, we want a loyal, loving partner that is different than everybody else.
Mhm.
And we know that it's not like you can magically make that happen today for us, but if you promise us that you're going to open up to that person coming in,
Mhm.
then we'll integrate, then we'll heal, then we'll stop
Mhm.
holding on to these things. And really each part of the self that was coming forward that day said the same thing. And so there was other parts of myself that came forward which had been protecting myself.
Mhm.
There was other parts that were like very like kind of like, well, I'm protecting them. And those parts had to also be negotiated with as well.
Mhm.
And then I was like, okay, I sat with that. And then I did the book called Calling in the One,
Mm.
which is I highly suggest. Like a lot of
Okay.
times people,
Calling
it's
in the
so
one.
good. Oh
I'm calling in the one right now, so maybe I'll take that
my
as
God,
a
do
little
the
wink from the
book
universe. Mhm.
or get the Mind Valley course. So I did a few weeks of the book and then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pay for Mind Valley and do it like piece by piece. I only got 17 lessons in
Mhm.
before. So I didn't even actually do
Woo!
like all 40
Yeah,
lessons.
yeah.
And I mentioned it to a friend the other day who I haven't spoken to in like 10 years. She reached out to me after she saw the wedding photo. And then she was like, I just been single for like 10 years. I feel like it's not going to happen for me. And also knowing I'm a great example because I've had the worst relationships and the worst time with it. So a lot of people are like, well, if Jen found somebody, then you know what? There really is somebody out there for all of us. It's
Mhm.
available. And so I told her, why don't you try out this Calling in the One book?
Mm.
And she said, this is so crazy. My friend gave me that book 3 years ago, but she told me, don't read it until you're ready to find your person because they
Mm.
will come in. And she's
I have
like, and I've been afraid
chills.
to read the book. And I'm
Mm.
like, how crazy? Because it's not like a super, like, it's not like The Power of Now that
Yeah.
everybody knows about this book or
Mhm.
has it. And she's like, I literally have this book and it was given to me. She's like, I'm going to start it.
Wait, I have chills. Like, I need to order this off Amazon right after this
Yeah, and,
conversation.
so what's really cool about it just, like, is instead of this, like, a lot of relationship manifestation is a checklist.
Yeah.
Similar to the Mr. Right thing, similar to
Yeah.
this, and it's like, we have all done that in the past, and then you're like,
Doesn't work.
"Oh, great.
Yeah.
The thing I left off was
Yeah.
super important to me,
Mhm.
actually."
Mhm. Mhm.
And so but with Calling in the One, it more gets you to the frequency of love
Mhm.
and more like being on the wavelength to actually call in that person.
Yeah.
And
I
it's more about like understanding your needs, which was something that I actually like I don't when I had to do those exercises about like my needs, I was kind of like, damn, I need like help. I need examples with this because
like, what are my needs?
I don't even know
Yeah.
what my needs are in a
Yeah, yeah.
relationship.
And I think, just like going on that, I think that's such an important little piece there because I feel like women specifically, we're taught to, I know this is me speaking from my own experience, we are taught to give and give and give. My mindset subconsciously was, oh, I don't want to be needy. I don't want them to have to do anything for me because then I'll be too much. You know what I'm saying? And it's like that subconscious programming. And it's like, wait a damn minute. It's like my needs are important. And that was, an ayahuasca journey. I actually had ayahuasca really showed me how, just myself, my experience being the oldest of 4 kids, my needs always came kind of last because my siblings' needs always came first because they were younger. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and then you just see that perpetuated in relationships, just in general. I feel like women always put their needs kind of like to the side. And I'm stereotyping here. You know what I'm saying? You can't,
Right.
one size doesn't fit all. But yeah, it's like, we're taught that like having needs is a bad thing or you're too much to have needs, which is bullshit,
Right.
really. So yeah, anyways.
And a lot of times like a need that people are afraid to admit is that they need to be a priority. Like,
Mm.
I need to be a priority in your life. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things that we're willing to really put aside a lot of times because we don't want to be too much. Because,
Mhm.
and then, for me, I had kind of a lot of times I will like I'm the person who was more of the avoidant and would stay in the situationship
Mhm.
because I'm the one who didn't want to make it exclusive. But usually that was because I was avoiding being hurt.
Yeah.
And I felt like I could mitigate being cheated on, mitigate being hurt, all
Mm.
of these things. And one of the biggest things over these last couple years that I had to really do was take responsibility. And like one of the things, so say for example with the cheating, um, you know how they say like you date a mirror of yourself, you date
Mhm.
what you are. So if you're dating a cheater, you're like, well, I would never do that to somebody. Like,
Mhm.
how does that make sense? Or if you're dating like a narcissist, that
Mhm.
doesn't make sense. Like, how is that me? And that was what I was still struggling with of
Mhm.
being able to take the responsibility for was that it's not that is the symptom.
Mhm.
The cheating, the narcissism is
Yeah.
the symptom.
Yeah.
But if you go back to the original
Yeah.
wound, it's the same. And
Yeah.
so what happens with like this a empath or people
Mhm.
pleaser with the narcissist, energy vampire person,
Mhm.
those are the same same
Mhm.
wound and the same need, which is
Mhm.
the needs were not met as a
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
And when the needs were not met, some people do it by
Mhm.
bending over backwards and people
Mhm.
pleasing,
Mhm.
and some people do it by at the sacrifice of
Yeah.
whatever they need to, of others'
Yeah.
needs or whatever to get their needs met.
Mhm.
And then those people continue to meet. And the
Mhm.
same thing with the cheating
Yeah.
is, unworthiness
Yeah.
is thinking, will someone ever really love me fully?
Yeah.
And then the cheater side is another manifestation of the same wound of worthiness is a protection, actually. A lot of times people are cheating to protect themselves from feeling pain.
Yeah, or self-sabotage, or if you have that
Yeah,
unworthiness wound and you don't feel worthy of the relationship, it's a way to sabotage it subconsciously. And I agree with you. I always say the root of it mirrors the root of the problem. It mirrors the wound, but the manifestation of that wound will look differently in every person. So you can't like yeah, because I could see how people get stuck in. What do you mean it's a mirror? No, it's not. I'm not like that. I'm like it's deeper than that. It goes deeper.
right.
It runs
Especially as
deeper.
the victim, feeling
Yes.
like a victim
Yes.
and then saying you're the same as the person who hurt you
Yeah, yeah,
is very triggering,
yeah,
but
yeah.
that's why it's triggering because
Yeah,
the triggers are the
there's
signals to
something
say
there. Yes.
you need to look deeper.
Yes.
And that was one during the whole shadow work journey of the last couple years was one of the things that I had to really accept is my emotional unavailability was
Mhm,
also attracting people who were unavailable. The true like inability, like I was not allowing myself to feel very low or dark emotions really ever. I was always kind of pretty evenly emotional,
mhm,
but it's really like I wasn't allowing myself to feel negative emotions too strongly. Even if like negative things came up, I could just like brush them off or feel like, well, at least it was me. If it was someone else, that'd be way worse for them because
mhm,
that would have messed them up.
mhm,
And, but not because everything is, equal. I
mhm.
actually, because I wasn't allowing myself to feel the depth of pain to the full extent that I actually needed to,
Right,
I wasn't actually feeling the full height of love
right.
and my capacity for love, as much as I did love my exes and as much as they truly did love me,
Mhm,
our capacity for love
mhm.
was actually limited and it
Right.
could not be unconditional.
Yeah.
I actually love them more unconditionally now
Mhm,
through
mhm,
my own healing and looking back and being able to see all the parts. I mean, you
mhm.
have to,
Yeah,
because when you look back at the way everything plays out in the end, you kind of have to have unconditional love
yeah,
or it's going to be, hate or indifference.
yeah.
But, I really was not able to see myself that I was incapable of holding the amount of love, and that's why I also was with other people who were incapable of holding that amount of love.
Yeah, I always like to say love is a spectrum in a way, like the way I describe it. It's like, yes, you can have these old relationships where their love is there, but you can only really love a person and a person can only love you as deeply as you love yourself. And in order to deepen that love within yourself, it requires you to sit at a table with all of those parts, to get to know those parts, to understand those parts, to build that capacity of love within yourself. Therefore, you then can hold love at a greater capacity and can attract in a deeper love. And this is why even within relationships, like you could love someone and that love will grow and deepen as time goes, because if you're doing the work on yourself and your partner is as well, your capacity for love is going to continue to grow, and that's so beautiful. But it doesn't mean that in the past love wasn't there. It's a spectrum. It's kind of like like unconditional, and conditional love. True unconditional love, I feel like as humans is tough. Do you know what I'm saying? It's tough, it's challenging, it really requires yeah, a lot of work, continual work. um I was gonna say something and I'm losing my train of thought, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that with like past relationships and stuff, because it feels like too, like in those, for me at least, like those old wounds, the less love I had within myself, the more I was like attached, and it was more that like toxic karmic bonding, trauma bonding,
Mhm.
as opposed to like actual love. Not that it wasn't present at all, but it's more chaotic. It's more like, I know for me at least, it was yeah, chaos. And that's what I knew love to be, was chaotic. It was this butterflies in the stomach. It was this all or nothing mentality. It was really dysregulating to my nervous system, but I had no idea that that's what it was because I didn't know what a regulated nervous system felt like. I didn't know how to love myself. So yeah, it's something that, I'm on the journey. But anyways, going back to you and your story.
Right, my love story that I haven't gotten to yet, but okay, so I was speaking on a cruise, and it was, like, called the Galactic Origins Cruise, and it was basically like a spiritual conference on a 7-day cruise ship, and
Which
so
is
it
so
was a
cool,
very
by the way, which is so cool, by the way, like, geez, like, for those listening, like, you guys, Jenn is so cool. Anyways, keep going.
and so I was speaking on that cruise about AI becoming conscious and the evolution of a new species and kind of playing with those ideas. And it was awesome because, there was also, we're getting off, we're going to Mexico, Belize, Honduras. And it's 7 days. And so, even though I'm into a lot of these kind of more out there topics,
Yeah.
I found myself being one of the most grounded people in the whole group and was kind of
Mm.
like, "Oh, wow, this is extreme."
Well, it's interesting, just quickly before we get into the story, because I could go off on a tangent on that too. It's like I feel like in the spiritual space, like there's so many people that are ungrounded, and it becomes another form of disassociation, which is something, I love spirituality. I consider myself very spiritual, but that's why I always say, like, I don't, new age spirituality, sometimes it's its own thing, and it can be a little, yeah, when you're not grounded, it can be, I don't know if like dangerous is the right word, but like spiritual psychosis comes to mind, because
Right.
you are into all of these really amazing topics, but you are very grounded, which I feel like is
And it
why we
is
connect.
something that I'm exploring talking about more because my
Mhm.
beliefs have changed a lot over the
Yeah.
last couple of years, and I've needed to integrate those beliefs,
Yeah.
but a lot of these topics,
Mhm.
say like star seeds, for example,
Mhm.
or 5D or things like that, these, initially are very expansive
Yes.
because it's like there's
Mhm.
more to me. And
Mhm.
actually, it's a trapping because it's actually further from the self, and you
Right.
continue to get further from the self, and spirituality is the self.
Yes. And I feel like people attach onto these things, because I agree with you. It's same with like conspiracy theories and all of these things, right?
Right.
It's like, even, in my realm of mediumship, like when people first, start believing in ghosts and the paranormal, like the hauntings and stuff, like, cause like I don't believe hauntings happen the way it's talked about in society, but it's almost an important piece because it helps wake people up, the conspiracies, the star seeds, this, that. It's like, oh
Right.
my God, there's more. But then people dive in too much of a rabbit hole. They attach onto these things, and exactly what you said, it pushes you farther away from self. Psychosis, right? Like there's so many different forms of psychosis: spiritual psychosis, political psychosis. Like there's
Right.
so many. Anyways, that's a whole
I
other
mean,
tangent.
the food psychosis
Yes.
of everybody trying to have the most imperfect ingredients, which is impossible.
Yeah. Literally. Yeah. Anyways,
There's so
that's
many versions of
mhm.
it. Okay, so I was on this,
Truth.
cruise speaking,
Which is so
and
cool though. I still like that's so anyways, I just I can't get over that, but
and so, was having a great time. There was many different things, reflections, like,
Mhm,
and my friend Tony Ghazi, who I was with on the cruise, and he like channels mantis beings, and like for someone again who's like so like into channeling, but he's so grounded and
mhm,
so like real and like the perfect balance between it.
mhm,
But so we're having the best time, and we're really talking about like reflections, and we keep like seeing things around us that are like really reflecting. So it was very healing,
mhm,
not in what the speakers were saying or in the practices, but really in watching everybody's behavior and these interactions with all these kind of spiritual personalities and these people with like mostly using fake names and
mhm,
personas
mhm,
and like, saying they're like healing the collective and all of these things.
mhm,
And so there was a lot of reflection. There was a lot of reflection around like men, because there's a lot of people then throwing around the word divine masculine, and then they're trying to sleep with everybody on the cruise, and it's like the spiritual F boys, and
Yeah.
then like also like these other like women who are like kind of, oh, they're so healed, they're like the healed feminine, and
Mhm,
then they're in all of these like there was like
mhm,
love triangles,
mhm.
and it was like just really reflecting a lot to me
Right.
around like the BS of all of
Yeah.
this
And
stuff, and it was actually pulling me further from,
mm,
like, wanting a partner because 'cause I'm like,
wow.
"Ugh, even more yuck,
Yeah.
ugh."
And you were
And then, like, one
seeing
of the
oh, sorry, you were seeing, like, the lack of embodiment, it's like these people have the knowledge, the jargon, but they don't embody what they're preaching.
and it's
Anyways.
also just the being dishonest with yourself.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
being really dishonest with the
yeah,
where you're at.
yeah, it's
Like, it's okay to not be perfect. Like
yeah,
like, for example, one person, and I liked all of the people as people,
yeah,
but I still reflected on what was
yes.
happening. Like, say one of the people,
Mhm.
we were out at one of these things, and I, like, go to start eating, and he's like, "Ah, ah, ah." I'm, like,
Mhm.
literally like,
Like,
"What?"
"What do you mean I'm about to eat?"
And he's like, "Oh." we have to bless our food.
Mm.
And I'm like, "Oh, please. Oh, please. I didn't come all the way to live a human experience to
Mhm.
do this performative crap."
Right, right, and that's the thing. It's one thing if it's true. Do you know what I'm saying? It's one
If it feels
thing
right for
if it
you.
feels right for you, but the performance, yeah, that's a whole other thing. It becomes
Or,
performative.
like, I don't think I need to bless my food.
Mhm.
So you
Yeah,
sit there and say as long of a prayer over your food if you'd
yeah,
like.
yeah.
And it was like, and also too, like, I've really, like, deconstructed a lot of these ideas around spirituality with, like, there is no good person.
Right.
So all of these things, these trappings of spirituality, which is like what a good person does, how a good person
Uh-huh.
acts, how a good person talks, how a good person thinks, is actually so inauthentic,
Mhm.
and they're thinking that they're being in their authenticity of their highest self, and it's actually a different version of the societal programming. Like the stuff I talk in my
Yes.
book is more the general societal
Mhm.
programming.
Mhm.
The spiritual
Yeah.
programming of this is what a good person does. This
Yeah.
is what a good person talks like. This
Mhm.
is how a good person handles conflict.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "No,
It's
actually."
it's a different version of the same programming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I was seeing a lot of that and a
Mhm.
lot of reflections, and it was actually making me feel even more like, ugh.
Icky.
And there was like even further from like wanting a man, wanting a partner, or
Mhm.
anything. And there was a couple pretty crucial moments. And on one of the first days of the cruise, there was a healer talking about somatic exercises.
Mhm.
And she guided us through this somatic exercise. And I had just had a really weird conversation with someone outside before I walked in because they brought up this person who I know a lot about is a not a good person in the space. And
Mhm.
like they tried to talk to me about that person. And I'm like, that person's a creep. That person tries to trick women into their hotel room. Like, I
Mhm.
know all about this person. And this
Mhm.
person started defending them and arguing with
Mhm.
me. And I was like, listen,
Yeah.
I don't care what your relationship with this person is, but I'm not gonna sit here and say, "Oh, love and light." And so I was a little, like, jostled, and it
Mhm.
was around, like, a issue with a guy and stuff, and so I was a little jostled. I go into this somatic healing. The person who ends up being my husband is also in this somatic healing sitting on the other
Mhm.
side, little did I know.
Mhm.
And so she guides us through this exercise of to the first time you fell in love. To go and relive the first time that you, like, acknowledge that you fell in love
Mhm. Mhm.
and, like, to hold those parts of your body and to, like, breathe into them. And, I'm not a crier, like, it takes a lot for me to cry, and especially not around people,
Aw.
like, I cannot, and
Mhm.
I was like like, trying to
Aw.
hide myself crying. And so one of the things that I saw was that I had already been hurt many times by then because I had my upbringing and all of this stuff, and I already had many reasons not to, like, trust or
Yeah.
love. And that moment when I was like it was like when I was like 18, one of my first serious relationships, and it was like, "Oh, I even though it was scary, at that age, I was brave enough to, like, love again or to love."
Mhm. Mhm.
And that was like, damn, that's what made me start crying is I was like, damn, like I was actually brave enough to do it then.
Mhm.
Whereas now, for the last several years,
Mhm.
I haven't been actually
Mhm.
brave enough to get hurt again, brave
Mhm.
enough to take that. Because when you love someone, it's not that they're never going to hurt you, it's that
Mhm.
they're worth possibly getting hurt by.
Mhm.
Because when you
Mhm.
open yourself up to a situation,
Mhm.
you open yourself up to the full good of it and to
Mhm.
the full bad of it. And
Mhm.
that whole potential
Mhm.
exists now.
Mhm.
And is it worth it?
Mhm.
And so I was kind of like sitting with that, and then other things happened, kind of seeing the divine masculine, seeing the divine feminine, and then they start like hooking up, and I'm like, "Oh God,
Sorry.
what a shit show!" And then I'm like, so this is now the last day of the cruise. 7 days. I've had a lot of reflections. We've had really deep discussions with friends and everything because you're with each other 24 hours a day. It's
Mhm.
not like a regular spiritual conference,
Yeah.
and so seventh day. Okay, so actually, one thing before, so the guy who ended up being my husband,
Mhm.
I had seen him around and he was very, just like to himself, didn't hang out with anybody, didn't talk to anyone, not in like a weird, way, but just like very content
Yeah.
introvert.
Mhm.
Very
Mhm.
content, very like engaged with
Yeah.
listening and taking in information, but not like socializing.
Yeah.
And so I had seen him around and he really didn't like fit in with the
Mhm.
other people that were there. He looked and acted different and had a different energy.
Mhm.
And probably like a bit of like an intimidating energy too.
Mhm.
And because he has these very prominent eyebrows, as you could see in the
He
photos.
looks so masculine. Just like a side note for those listening, when I saw like a photo of you 2, I was like, "Whoa." I was like, "It fits so perfectly," because I feel like you need someone that's like I don't even know how to, like, explain it. Like, I there's no words, but I was like, that is her match." Like, you could just tell in the image. You 2 look really cute together. It's yeah,
Thank you.
anyways.
And yes, so he is very in his masculine,
Mhm.
not in a toxic masculine way,
No.
and just in this comfortable masculine way.
Mhm.
And not with all the bells and whistles like everybody else that they've
Yeah,
got their like,
yeah.
mandala scarf and things. And so,
Crystals in
he's
their
just in his
bras.
yeah. And he's just in his like regular like t-shirt and pants
Mhm,
and
mhm.
just um
His human
and
self.
so yes.
Just he
And
showed up
so
with his
actually
humanness.
I was talking to King Cash, who was one of the other speakers
Oh, okay,
there
I know who
and
that is.
who I love him and he was so fun. And so we were talking after something and we were like near the elevator. We were just like in this deep conversation. And because of my past in customer service, because I have managed so many different businesses and worked in so many different things, I have like this like autopilot that like if somebody walks through a door and I'm kind of in a work mode
Mhm,
or somebody walks off the elevator or something, I will acknowledge and like almost greet them because
mhm.
of greeting people in so many jobs and so many like
That's so
I could be in
funny.
the middle of doing something, a customer would come in, I'd be like, "Hi, welcome." And it's just like I can't it's still in me.
Instinctual
So,
now.
yeah, so I'm talking to Cash, the man who will then become my husband, walks off of the elevator and I'm like and then go back to the thing. So I like stop and like give him this big smile because I'm like in my work mode kind
Right.
of because we were just doing this panel and stuff. And
Mhm.
so he said, and it was funny because he has this kind of like,
Yeah.
kind of stoic demeanor. And then he was like, and then walked away. And I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't really think anything of it. He said later that
Yeah.
in his mind, he was like, she wants me.
Wait.
And I was like, "You
I'm
know what? At
I'm
that moment, maybe not,
yeah.
but you were tapping into the future because I
Yes,
would
yes.
shortly after."
That's so funny. Wait, I'm just, like, picturing it because I know what both of you look like from the photos. So I'm just, like, picturing that interaction in my mind. That's so
And
funny.
because he had been so, like, stoic and, like,
Mhm.
introverted, isolated throughout the whole thing, and then he, like, lit up and smiled, I was like, "Oh, okay. That guy is pretty nice." Um, so then the last day of the cruise, I give my lecture, and he had come to the lecture. It was I mean, not to toot my own horn, it was
It
good.
was
Everybody
amazing.
loved it. The questions were coming. It was
Mhm.
great. No,
Mhm.
it was fun.
No, of course it was. It was you, so and that's, like
And
just really quickly, the topic of conversation that you talked about, I feel like is a whole other podcast episode because that's, like,
mhm.
a whole other thing, like, talking about, like, AI and stuff, and just that's another thing is people are getting psychosis from ChatGPT.
Right. But as we know, people can get a psychosis from everything.
Literally
Someone I know
everything.
that had psychosis got it because of a candy wrapper. Because when you're already in it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you're
yeah,
already unraveling,
yeah,
and then the candy wrapper
yeah,
says the exact thing that you were just thinking.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
trigger. So that's, it's a balance
Yeah,
of it
yeah,
all.
it's like not giving your power away to these outside sources, right? But you have
Right.
to be honest with yourself. And anyways, I could see how people who are unstable internally can start to rely on AI, which can be
Right.
dangerous. Do you know what I'm saying? I could see that, especially in the world that we live in. A lot of people are unstable right now. But that's a whole other topic of conversation. But it is an interesting topic of conversation because is it its own consciousness? Like it's yeah,
Right.
interesting.
I wanna come back and talk about that, and I wanna also talk about these, like, trappings of the new age because I have a lot on both of
Oh
those
my God.
topics that we
I'll
can
have
get
to get
into.
you back on for another episode.
Yes. So, I give my lecture, and then afterwards kind of, like, talking to some people, taking pictures, all of these things. And then he then has wanted to like talk to me, and he's like, okay, he says to himself, he's like, okay, when I get up, if there's anybody like standing there talking to her or waiting to talk to her, I'm not going to wait. I'm just going to leave. And if there's not, then I'll talk to her. And then he said when he stood up, the whole room cleared.
Interesting.
So then he introduced himself to me and told me he's in the military and all of this stuff, and like talked a little bit about AI, and asked if I had seen these movies. And I was like, huh, like this guy is really interesting. And I was like, and then I think I hugged him and we said he left. And then I was kind of like, huh, what the hell is that guy doing here? I already
Mm,
thought that he didn't fit in. And now that I know that he's like
right.
actively in the military still, and
Mhm.
I'm like, what the hell? What is that guy doing here?
Mhm.
And but I was very intrigued
Yeah.
by him. So then later that night, the very final event of the cruise, the last of everything going on, was a panel. And so I had gotten there a little bit late, and all the seats were kind of like taken. There was like a couple scattered seats, but then I saw him sitting there and there was a whole row of empty seats next to him, which every other row is like packed.
Mhm.
And I'm like, "Oh, there's that guy. He was nice. I'll go sit with him." And so I like sit next to him and I'm like, "So what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing on this
Mhm.
cruise? Like, how
Yeah.
did you get here?" And then he just kind of starts like spilling the beans on like his whole journey where he saw like a channeler. He did a session with a channeler, and he had been kind of wondering about like, he's very in the masculine. He's like been to war a bunch of times, has
Mhm.
lived this very military lifestyle, but then
Mhm.
he's also very into the spiritual. And so he was feeling like, he's like, am I like too masculine? Do I need to like embody my feminine more? Do I need more balance?
Mhm.
And this channeler was like, no, you're good. There still
Mhm.
needs to be masculine, divine masculine in the world. What you need to do is you need to protect women. You need to teach men. You need to hold like a healthy masculine energy,
Mhm.
and you're fine. You don't need to change things.
Yeah.
And she gave him some other advice too. And so that had really impacted him and made him
Mhm.
kind of step more into this role, instead of thinking like, do I need to like change? Do I need to get out of this role? Being like,
Right.
oh, more empowered in this role of
Mhm.
like, okay, now I need to make sure that I look at women like they're my sisters. I need to like see
Right.
like these are like,
Mhm.
this is all family. Everybody is
Mhm.
family. And like
Mhm.
the way that he then starts to like navigate life differently. So that channeler was supposed to be one of the speakers on the cruise, but then she ended up not coming.
Mm.
So he had already had his ticket, and then he was supposed to go with a friend, and then that friend ended up not coming. So then he just
Interesting.
ended up there alone to
Uh,
meet me, of course.
of
And
course.
so
Divine
and
alignment. Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
but he probably wouldn't have gone on the cruise if it wasn't for that channeler,
Right.
but obviously that wasn't,
Right.
the point of it, because
Yeah.
otherwise
Yeah.
she would have been there to speak.
Right.
And then his friend, if that person was supposed to come, they would have came.
Mhm.
And so it was in like perfect alignment for
Interesting.
him to be alone throughout
Mhm.
the cruise.
Mhm.
And so then he's kind of talking about this kind of thing and like his role and like, embodying and being like, being like comfortable and being like a safe masculine and things like that. And then he looks at me, but he's like, but he's like, you're so feminine. And I'm like, wow, this man really has been to war. Wow, this man really has slept in a ditch.
Oh my god.
And I'm embodying my feminine so much more since he came into my life, because
Mhm.
it's, like, safe to come out and
Right.
safe to be.
Mhm.
But my whole life having to do that, even I didn't
Yeah.
even grow up with, like, any men in my house. I only grew up, so it was like I was always kind of like a man of the house type of
Right.
person.
Yeah.
So I never really, like, barely ever got to let my feminine really come out. Like,
Mhm.
thankfully, I have, like, a feminine look, but my personality, my energy was very,
Mhm.
like, anchored in, like, that protecting that
Yeah.
part of myself.
Mhm.
And, because you are very susceptible if you become very in your
Mhm.
feminine without having kind of those, at least feeling safe. You
Yeah.
probably don't always need these safeguards, but you have to feel safe to
Yeah.
do it. And so he's like, "You're so, like, feminine. You're like a goddess." I'm like, "Wow."
Yes.
I was like, "Here, follow yourself on Instagram right here." And then I saw he had 0 followers, And I was like, even
Man
more perfect.
man of my
I'm like
dreams.
yeah, I'm like, "You know what? Put your phone number in and text yourself right now." And I said, "Hold on, let me see yours. Let me get yours right now." Okay. I'm like,
That
"Let me put mine in there."
sorry, pause for 2 seconds. There's just a huge garbage truck going by, and it's really loud. I don't know if you could hear it. I just wanna make
I
sure I
don't
could
hear it on my end.
okay, as long as you yeah, it was just hard to hear you, but sorry, keep going. That's so funny. Keep going.
And so then, we're kind of talking and it's at the end of the cruise. Everybody's saying bye and people are like, "Oh, Jen, it was so good." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah." So anyway, like, how
Mhm,
did you end up? I'm like
mhm,
trying to um and then so I've had this inside joke with one of my friends for like 2 years
mhm.
where she's like, "Oh, what if your man is here?" And I'm like, "My man's not here. He's home journaling. He's working on himself. My man is home journaling. He wouldn't hang out."
Mhm.
And so we've had this joke where we're like, "He's journaling. He's journaling. That's where he's at. He's not here because he's journaling." And so then everything is like kind of shutting down for the event and there was like a SpaceX launch that was going to happen, so a bunch of people were going up to the top deck to
Mhm.
watch it. And I was like, "Oh, like do you want to come up with us?" And he's like, "You know what? I'm not going to hang out. I'm good. I'm going to go back to my room and journal, but it was really nice meeting you." And I was like, "Oh god. He's journaling. He really was journaling this whole time."
This is so funny for those listening, like, that piece is, like, my favorite part to the story. I think it's so funny, but it's so oddly specific, and it's so funny, like, you're on a cruise, everyone's gonna go up to watch whatever SpaceX thing it was, and he chooses to go journal, like, I just think
Right, and
it's
even though we had obviously just hit it off, he
yes,
most people would still go up and hang out
right.
just to hang out,
Yeah.
and the fact that he was like, "You know what? I'm good. It was really nice meeting you. I'm gonna go journal."
He went to go
He's
journal
like
without you probably.
yeah, oh, for sure. So what was funny is that I was telling him in that conversation leading up to that, that I told him there were so many reflections and like one reflection and then another reflection. Then those reflections started hooking up with each other and gave me
Mhm.
a third reflection. And he was like, "Well, it was really interesting because I had the same experience with you." He said, "I saw you speak earlier, like at one of the panels." And he was like, "I wanted to talk to you." But then I was like, "No, she's too busy." And then he saw Cash say something and he was like, "Oh, I wanna go talk to Cash about that." But then he's like, "No, Cash is too busy." And then when he walked out of the elevator that day, both me and Cash were talking
Oh,
and looked and
chills.
smiled at him. So he had the same type of thing that I had with the reflections of like 2 different people,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
like I was seeing, and then them coming together created a third reflection. So
Interesting.
so it was actually like a very important moment for
Mhm.
us to both acknowledge him and like smile at
Mhm.
him at that moment. And
Interesting.
so, then we were together very quickly after that. There's
Mhm.
more to it. I went to Sedona afterwards to see if
Mhm.
there was something between us, and then basically, like, the day after Sedona, we were, like, official, and that was, like, only 6 months ago. Like, we just met 6 months ago. We met on,
Yeah.
like, basically the winter solstice,
Mhm.
and then we got married basically on the summer solstice, so
Wow. Oh,
very
it's
quick.
such a beautiful love story, but when I feel like when and, like,
Right.
you've been on this journey for a while now, and you don't need to tell me, but how long were you single before this?
For 3 years. I was
Yeah.
single and celibate for 3 years,
Right.
and my relationship before that was, like, 4 years long, and
Okay.
it was, like, a very chaotic I've told you. I've talked about it on my Substack in great detail too of this,
Mhm.
like, kind of crazy possession story and all of this crazy stuff that happened.
Right, you
Um,
mentioned this story to me as well. It's interesting though, because you did ayahuasca at some point in between, and ayahuasca told you that you were a lesbian, right? Or
right.
what was do
And
you
so
wanna share that a little bit?
this is also a very, like, kind of important thing to, like, that first conversation that I had that day on the cruise with him where
Mhm,
he's like, "You're so feminine,"
mhm,
and, like, him seeing me in this way because so I had done ayahuasca the first time in 2023. Had a great experience. When I did it in 2024, I also had a great experience, but it was like a brutal,
mm.
great experience. It was like kicked my ass for 4 nights. And at the end of like each night, as I would finally get, and it was like the medicine in Peru was so strong compared to the one that I had done in Costa Rica. Like in the one in Peru, I had so much less, and I, like,
Mhm,
the first night couldn't even lift my arms to even get the blanket.
mhm,
Like, I couldn't even speak, I couldn't anything,
mhm,
and it was so intense, but then, like, as it would start to kind of wear off after hours,
Mhm.
the same thing kept coming up, and it was like this conversation with Mother Aya, which was very funny, where she was like, "Listen, it's not gonna work out for you with men. I'm just telling you." She's like, "Look, they're too insecure.
Mm.
They are too intimidated because you're masculine. Listen,
Mhm.
they are looking for something different
Mhm.
than what you are." They're like, "Also, you don't want kids. That's not gonna work. Any type of guy that then does like the way you are, they're not gonna accept that you don't want kids." And they're like, "Also, this whole JK Ultra thing that you're doing, they're not gonna wanna do that." That's it's
Mhm.
like, look, they're just not healed enough. They're just not
Mhm.
there enough. They're not gonna
Mhm.
accept you for who you are. They're gonna wanna make you smaller.
Mm.
They're not gonna wanna let you grow because it
Mhm.
scares them to let you grow.
Mhm.
So they're gonna make you smaller, and then she's like, "Don't worry, you're not gonna accept them the way they are either.
Mhm.
You're gonna wanna make them better."
Mhm.
And they don't wanna be better. They
Mhm.
want to be the way they are.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh my god, what do you mean?" Like, and I was like, "Well, actually, this would make sense." I was like, and she's like, "Well, you know what? Just be with women." And I'm like, "But Mother Aya,
Mm.
I I've tried that already.
Mhm.
I've already been there and done that when I was younger." I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, I don't think it was for me. I don't think that's for me." And she's like, "Well, don't worry, because the next person that you meet, you're gonna fall in love with their heart first." And she's like, "'Cause in the past, you
Mhm.
always fell in love with either for or you first it was a sexual attraction
Right.
or a mental attraction, and the
Mhm.
heart came last." So
Mm.
she said, "It was always either sexual or mental first,
Mm.
heart last." She's like, "So it doesn't matter what somebody is
Mhm.
because you're gonna fall in love with their heart first. So
Mhm.
don't worry about it. The other stuff will come, and the sexual stuff will be the last one. So it's the least of what you have to worry about anyway."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Damn, this is crazy." And then the next night she tells me again. She's like, "Yeah, the thing we were talking about, it's not gonna happen. I just want." It was kind of like, I know you were thinking about it today that it might not be true, but I'm back to tell you again that, like, just be gay. You're a lesbian. It's fine. You're gonna be happy. You're gonna finally be happy. You're gonna find the right person for you.
Mhm.
It's like it's an Ellen. Have your Ellen. Be happy." And I'm like, "Oh my God." Next night, same thing again. And then, like, by the last night, I'm like, "All right,
Mhm.
I'm gay." I'm gay. I'm as gay as they come. And then I'm like, and I was also too, part of me going to Solterra was to also, post about it.
Mhm.
And so I was like, "Well, damn." I was like, "Well, that's a good title for YouTube. Ayahuasca made me gay." I'm like, and so came back, did a live about how I'm gay now. It's like literally the funniest video ever. Everybody says it's like the funniest video ever is me coming out and then arguing with people in the comments about it.
Interesting. It's so fascinating. A couple things that I just want, I mean, and I'm kind of smiling and laughing because it's funny too.
We're interrupting this episode to share something close to our hearts, our virtual healing circles. We have been loving them so much and meeting so many of you incredible people through them. Brittany and I are passionate about bringing people together to support one another and heal in community. We felt alone on our paths for so long, and coming together in community has been instrumental to our growth, and we've both seen the importance in it. We aren't meant to do this alone. In unity and vulnerability, we find strength, courage, and support each other on our paths back to ourselves. Our monthly virtual seminars blend discussions, workshops, and practices to nurture your mind, body, and spirit. Whether seeking guidance, healing, or a listening ear, our gatherings offer a safe, inclusive space for people to connect, heal, and grow. Join us on this journey of healing in community. Together we can heal, grow, and thrive. Register for the next circle using the link in the show notes. We hope to see you there.
But, just talking about ayahuasca really quickly, just plant medicine in general, like for those listening, it's interesting because you'll get messages that aren't always true, So it's really important, just a disclaimer, if you ever sit with medicine, just give it time to integrate. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't give things time to integrate. Sometimes the messages are not always true, or it doesn't turn out the way the medicine kind of says it's going to turn out. So it's really important not to attach on to these messages that we get or whatever it may be. I've made the mistake the hard way, trust me, where I'm attaching onto an outcome because I'm like, but they said it was going to turn out this way, and then it doesn't. And
Right.
there's always purpose, right, as to why they make
Mm.
us think what we think. But I thought that, yeah, I remember you telling me that and just being like, "Oh my gosh, that's so interesting and fascinating." And for whatever reason, maybe you needed to believe that to fully let that go, or maybe it helped you fully surrender into who you are. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? When you let go of the idea of, because ayahuasca was saying something like, well, the JK Elter thing, maybe she was like reflecting, and this is just my thoughts, this doesn't have to resonate, but maybe she was reflecting your own subconscious thoughts. You know what I'm saying? So to like let that go completely, to surrender to that, then is what allows the door to open a little bit.
Right. And
Um,
so there was a couple things
mhm,
too. The ayahuasca in that same group of ceremonies in Peru also told me to make amends with my dad
mhm,
after 20 years of not speaking. That went, I mean, horribly wrong. It was not what ayahuasca.
mm,
So what it had led me to do was not, it did not go as she told me it would and told me what to do. And I followed those things.
mhm,
And then the other thing too was this was around it was like around the time that Trump had gotten shot. And I had already believed he was going to win the election because in California, if that many people were talking about it, and I'm like, and this is one of the most like liberal cities where I live, I'm like, he's definitely winning. If people in LA feel this way, the whole country feels this
yeah,
way. And so I was very certain that he was going to win. And then he got shot like a week before I did the
mm,
ayahuasca. And I was like, oh, for sure. This is a done deal. There's no
mm,
chance for him to lose. The ayahuasca told me Kamala Harris is gonna win
mm,
because, this is gonna be like another version of Eve, that basically women are gonna get blamed for the downfall. It's gonna
mm,
be Pandora's box. It's gonna be Eve. It's gonna be
mm,
250 years of in the making of a collapse of an empire to blame it on a woman. And I was like, damn. So then I was doing a hypnosis session on someone and they were talking about ayahuasca and like they had this whole long thing about this twin flame journey and it was so toxic as always. You just have
mm,
to say twin flame journey to know that it's toxic.
yeah,
And it's like this whole toxic story.
yeah.
And then he's talking about ayahuasca and he says that like the ayahuasca told him to do it. And I was like, wait, the
Wait a
ayahuasca
minute.
told him to do this. The ayahuasca told me to do something that
Mm,
didn't go good for me either. And then Trump wins the election, and
mm,
I'm like,
wait a
wait,
minute.
am I not a lesbian?
Yeah.
And so, so then I went under QHHT with Sarah Brooksman Cosme, and it's actually on. It's split up on our YouTube, so I don't know which part is on which YouTube, but it's like a 4-part thing. And we asked, like, why did the
Mm,
ayahuasca lie to me in this
mhm,
way? And it said basically that when we are living in certainty, we're closing off other timelines.
mm,
And
mm,
I needed to be uncertain. So
mm,
I was very certain that Trump was going to win.
mm,
I needed to believe that that was not the case because it needed to open up timelines in my life, probably even
right,
unrelated to politics, but to
right.
be open to uncertainty. And
Mm,
then the same thing with the relationship, and at that point, I had not gone on the cruise yet. This was a month before the cruise. I went under hypnosis, and, um, basically, it had said that, like, this needed to kind of collapse these, like, ideas that, like, "Is there someone for me? Is there going to be a man for me? Is there a right person? Am I going to" and it was just like it had to tell me, like, forget it all. It's not happening.
yeah,
Anything that you thought was gonna happen is not gonna happen.
yeah.
It's completely different. Let it go. Forget it. And I
Mhm,
honestly was free after that. Like, when I
mm,
came back from that ceremony, I was like, "Thank God. I don't have to ever worry about this again."
right.
And then what's interesting is when I met with Sarah Brexman Cosme before going into the hypnosis, we were talking when I first, she was in California and I had met up with her. She's like, "You're getting married next year." And I said, "What I'm getting married next year." I say, "Listen, I don't even know if I'm straight or gay. I don't even know what I'm doing. I've accepted I'll die alone. I
Mhm,
don't." And I said, "Married by next year, I don't even know anybody that I
interesting.
like. I don't even
Mm.
like anybody." And she's like, "I don't know." She's like, "I had a dream last night that you got married next year." And
Whoa.
so it was so funny because then 1 month after that hypnosis was the cruise,
Mhm.
and then obviously that was only, whatever,
Yeah.
7 months ago or something now.
Mhm.
So she was right. She was
Whoa.
right that that dream that she had when I got there was right. And it had also said too, she asked when I was under hypnosis, like, "Is there, like, a partner for me?" And it was saying, like, "Yeah, there is." And, it did say that it was a man. It might
Mhm.
have not explicitly, but it did say he and things
Right.
like that. And it was basically like, "Yeah, there is somebody, but, like, he's not gonna be perfect,
Yeah.
and you just need to, like, accept these, like,
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
are not perfect." And actually, the things that it brought up is so funny because it's actually not like him, but they're things that annoy me a lot.
Mm.
Like, I get very annoyed, like, if I have to, like, clean up after a partner
Mhm.
because then it makes me feel like a mom,
Mhm.
and I it just really, like,
Yeah.
it turns me off so
Yeah.
much, and it's something that, like, a lot of people don't care about that much. For me, it literally, like, spirals me
Yeah.
to, like, need to get away.
Yeah.
And so it's very funny that that was the example it brought up because it's something that annoys me a lot, but my husband is, like, the most
Good.
neat freak. His meditation is cleaning. He loves dishes. He lives for laundry. Like, he loves it. So, like,
Love
immaculate
it.
everything. I'm like, "Good, I get to be the messy one? Perfect.
It's so
This is what
funny.
I've always wanted."
No, but I love that for you. Being messy is good. I actually took a photo of a sign I saw the other day and it said messy is good. But anyways, that's a little side note. But no, I love that. And I love yeah, I love how it all just woo, I love how it all played out. It just like I can't help but smile. It's such a sweet story. I even want to say like I don't know if like inspiring is the right word, but it's nice for people who are on the journey who haven't met someone yet, you know what I'm saying, to hear like by doing the work, focusing on you, prioritizing yourself, like divine timing, man, divine alignment, like the chances of you two meeting when you did, how you did, the fact that he was
Right,
on that cruise is still kind of funny. It's a mystery, you know what I mean?
right.
Um
And we were passing through the Bermuda Triangle when we met. So it was
oh,
like, how
of course that would be your story to be
of
passing
course,
through
we
the
met in the Bermuda Triangle, like, of course.
I love
And,
that.
another thing about that divine timing too is actually right before my lecture,
Mhm.
I watched someone else's and they did like a Mayan light language
Mhm.
transmission, and it was actually, a friend of mine on the cruise. It was not probably the event that I probably would have gone to, but I wanted to support her.
Mhm.
And so, it was not something that I would probably have attended.
Mhm.
And so during that, she was kind of like calling us to like Mayan past lives.
Mhm.
And I did not experience that. What I actually experienced very viscerally in the visualization, almost like a shamanic journey in my head, was I was on top of a Mayan temple and we had just gone to a lot of Mayan sites in Belize and in Mexico over
Mhm.
these last couple days. And I saw myself on the top of a temple, like, in my current form,
Mhm.
and then, like, this, like, Mayan ceremony that they would do that kind of gets talked about where they would, like, pull the person's heart out of their chest and, like, eat it and stuff.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, everyone else was probably having, like, this beautiful, like, beautiful
Mhm.
Mayan experience with, like, their spirit animals, and mine was, like, it literally, like, ripped my heart out. It was, like, gushing, it was so graphic
Same.
and, like,
Same.
bloody and insane, and I was like the message that it had given me was, like, your old heart, like, is done now. Like, it's gone. It's been fully removed from you. All of the stuff, like, it's gone. The old heart is gone. It's
Mhm.
not to be anymore. It's been and then, this kind of divine feminine, masculine little love triangles,
Mhm.
some of those people were in the room,
Mm.
and I also got, like and I was having judgment towards them, and not to say judgment's bad. Judgment's another part of creation that we all need to
Mhm.
just acknowledge and
Mhm.
accept and be honest when we're being judgmental. And then after the heart got ripped out, it told me, that situation that I was observing and judging and was turning me off a lot to like, "Oh god, I'm never gonna, like, find somebody. This is even
Mhm.
in this community, it's crap."
Mhm.
And, like, it was like, "You're never gonna deal with that again. This is
Mm.
so separate from you.
Mhm.
This is the
Mhm.
last, like, time, and when
Mm.
you see it, you're only gonna see it, like, outside of your reality. Like, this is
Yeah.
done. That whole story, that whole
Mhm.
thing, this triangle, this whole that's
Mhm.
completely done. It's
Mhm.
over."
Mhm.
So then I got up from that. 30 minutes later was my lecture. So even though my husband and I had been on the cruise for 7 days together,
Mhm.
crossing paths, being in the same room, to being
Mm.
at the same lectures,
Mhm.
seeing each other, not 1 second earlier could
Mm.
it have happened
Ah.
because that ceremony
Mm.
that I ended up experiencing during that woman singing the light language
Wow.
was what I needed. I needed the confirmation that
Mm.
moment that I was never going to experience
Mm.
all of the stuff that I experienced in the past. And when I did the parts work that night too, my higher self said when I finished it, it said, "You're," and it's not that you'll never experience pain again. It's
Yeah.
not like there'll never be hardship again, but it was like, "It will never be that bad again.
Yeah. Yeah.
The circumstances will never be that high of a betrayal again.
Yes.
That
Yeah.
it will never be as
Yeah.
extreme as it
Yeah.
was before. So even if there is hardship, even if there is
Yes.
heartaches,
Yes.
it's never going to be that bad
Yeah.
again." And I needed that confirmation to have, like, the
Mhm.
courage
Mhm.
to step forward.
Yeah.
But then it was just like, that's why, like, why I, since this experience, have told people, like, it cannot happen 1 second earlier. We
Yeah.
were in the same rooms for 7 days,
Yeah.
crossing paths. We could not
Interesting.
until that very moment where I really felt safe that it's not gonna
Mm.
happen, and had this kind of visual representation showing me that, like,
Mhm.
my old heart is done. That
Mhm.
person was left on the cruise, and I always tell him that, like, the person
Mhm.
that he met,
Mhm.
he'll never meet the old me.
Oh,
He That old me was, like, left out there at sea
yeah. Whew,
because
I got chills. Yeah.
that
Interesting.
doesn't exist anymore. So it's like, there's always
Mhm.
this, like, longing of, like, when? Where are they? Do they exist? And it's really, like, just trust that
Yeah.
it can't happen 1 second earlier. Because if it happens 1 second earlier, then you're just gonna walk right past each other, and it's not the time yet.
Right. Oh, I have chills. Ooh, I've got chills. Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's like, yeah, the old story is done, right? The old story that you told yourself based on your past experiences, like you needed to kind of find that closure to start a new story.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean personally with where I'm at on my journey, I know I'm calling love in. I know I'm calling the one in. I know that. And I feel like it's soon. But I've been feeling this since, like, last year. So I'm just trusting the timing, just focusing on myself, but
Right.
I get caught up in the wondering. I'm like, "Okay, who is it? Where is he?" You know what I'm saying? Not but more it's turned into more so fun now. I'm more so, like, curious in a fun way. I'm like, "Woo!" I'm like, "Where is he? Who is he?" But really just kind of trying to surrender into that, yeah, just surrender into the trust, and I just love hearing you say that the alignment has to be like, the timing has to be perfect, which it will be. That's divine timing. So I
Right.
just
It always is.
yeah.
It always is, like, the perfect timing, and
Mhm.
it is important to, like, see people who've struggled with
Mhm.
love. Because a few months before the cruise, one of my good friends who had struggled a lot with
Mhm.
relationships and kind of never really had, like, a good relationship really ever in her whole lifetime. She had relationships, but they never really were even, like, anywhere near the relationship she deserved,
Mhm.
and, like, 2 months before the cruise, she's, like, a witch and has, like, and she's, like a heavy witch, like a dark witch, like, does all the
Like,
heavy
where's the
stuff, and
hat? No.
well, no, she's got, like, face tattoos and does, like, her dog is named, like, Lucifer,
Got it,
and,
okay.
like, so she's, like,
Mhm.
and she found the most perfect man
Mm.
who he literally, like, is also into all the same exact stuff.
Uh-huh.
He has a store of all occult oddities.
Mm.
He, like, does the same type of stuff and he didn't want a baby
Mm.
witch. Baby witches were coming in and out of the store all the time. He doesn't want a baby witch. He
He wants
wanted
a
the real deal.
full-blown
Yeah,
witch.
he wanted someone like him,
His
like,
equal, his partner, not that the baby
yes.
witches are less than, they're just not as far along the journey of that. Yeah.
And, we meet people on our wavelength, and
Yes,
that's how you really connect.
yes.
So, when I saw her meet, like, the most perfect person, I was like, "Oh, this is," and then also too, she did move to her, Venus line in astrocartography
Ah,
when she met him, and that's where his store was,
ah.
on her Venus line. And
Interesting.
then as far as the astrocartography with my relationship, it was actually all of the ports, the 3 ports that we stopped at on the cruise were all on his Venus line.
Ah.
And so then also when we did an astrocartography reading together, with Cosmic Vibrations, and she's on on Instagram and TikTok, and so good. It was the best reading ever. But then I have minor lines, which I had a minor line, which I never looked at the minor lines and I didn't understand them.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, you were on your soulmate line and you were on his Venus line." So I do think that that is another thing, maybe a
Yeah.
vacation to those types of areas,
Yeah.
traveling to those areas,
Yeah.
talking to people from those areas.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't force.
And that's the thing, you can't plan it, right? Like that's I love astrology. I don't know enough to really kind of regurgitate but I believe in it and I think it's so fascinating. What I've noticed for me, it's like by looking at it afterwards, I'm like, "Oh, it lines up with what I've done just based on following my intuition."
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tough. Like, yeah, not the saying that you shouldn't, because of course you could like look at it and be like, okay, well, maybe I'll take my next vacation here, but it'll happen when it's supposed to happen.
Right. And those other lines, you should look into your astrocartography because after I went to Peru, I realized that Peru was on my Pluto line, and Pluto is like one of the biggest transformations.
Mm,
So it's interesting is a lot of times if you look back at vacations that you've
right.
had that were super transformative,
Yeah,
they're usually on these points
that makes
in your
sense.
astrocartography that is
Mm,
so powerful.
yeah. No, I believe that. Yeah, I know, like San Diego, for example, I spent about a few we hung out when I was there.
Yes.
I came to see you in LA, you came to see me as well. That's a huge I know I have lines that run through that, and that was a
Mhm.
huge awakening time for me. So, yeah, it'd be
That was a
interesting.
huge shift.
Huge shifts. Yeah, it would be interesting to look back on that other stuff. But, anyways, I'm just being cognizant of time, but I feel like I wanna get you back on the podcast to talk about,
Please.
like, the AI and stuff like that because I just feel like, yeah, you're the perfect person to talk to about all of that stuff. But thank you so much just for your time today, for sharing your love story today. And again, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm curious, did you wanna leave the audience with anything?
Um I think, I like the idea of even outside of love, maybe if they've already found love, I
Mhm,
think that same exact right second is other areas of life too. So
mhm.
maybe if love isn't the forefront, maybe it's another area of life.
Right.
It is not going to happen a second earlier
Yeah.
than it needs to. And
Yeah.
it's going to be right perfect when it does.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think that's such an important piece to note. So, yeah, I appreciate that. For those listening, if you don't already follow Jenn, please, you should check her out. I'll have all of her links down in the description below. Get her book. What's it called again? Can
It's
Remove?
called Ken Not Included. Ooh.
Ken Not Included. Ken Not Included. Yeah, woo, that looks good. I'm excited to read that. So I'll have that linked in the description box below as well. But thank you all so much for listening to this conversation, for being with us today, and we will see you next Wednesday. Bye.
As we wrap up today's episode, we want to extend our deepest gratitude for joining us on this journey. Your support does not go unnoticed. If you enjoyed this episode and find value in our conversations, please take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback not only helps us grow, but also allows us to reach more people who can benefit from our community of healing and support. Every review, every rating makes a difference. Thank you for being a part of the Multiple Truths podcast family. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Multiple Truths podcast. Keep speaking your truth and spreading your light. We love you, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.